suspect detection. National inflation dips. Cartel henchmen unleash violence after top drug lord killed in Mexico. T20 World Cup hosts on the brink of elimination.
The top story on Gold FM.
For Sri Lanka's multi-billion-dollar apparel industry, the only constant in 2026 has been volatility. Following months of borderline panic over punitive US trade policies, the sector is now recalibrating after a landmark US High Court ruling nullified country-specific trade imbalance tariffs, only for the Trump administration to pivot to a 15% global baseline. Felix Fernando, chairman of the Joint Apparel Association Forum, or JAF, warns that while the headlines suggest a lower rate, the loss of relative competitiveness and a mismatch in brand partnerships are creating a perfect storm that has already led to high-profile factory consolidations. Fernando explains the shift from the original devastating tariffs, which were based on the trade gap between the US and individual nations, to be the new global flat rate.
Trump had a new scheme to divide the tariff or the import duties based on each country's import and export. They call trade imbalance. Okay, the difference. He considered the total imports to US versus total exports from US to a particular country, and maybe then they some difference with that difference in the import-export trade balance. They came up with a rate. So which was very bad for a country like Sri Lanka because we had very little imports from USA, but we had a huge amount of exports to US. So as a result, some of the countries, they were imposed heavy, and I think original 45-46% duty. Then it came down to, after negotiations, came down to 20%. But it's not only Sri Lanka, but maybe there are a lot of South American countries, then countries like China, even Europe, European Union countries. So all these things were affected.
Now, despite the drop from 20% to 15%, Fernando argues that Sri Lanka may actually lose its edge because the global nature of the tax removes the disadvantage previously faced by giant competitors like China.
When you are at 20%, and maybe in India and in Bangladesh also at 20%, I mean, you are somewhat okay because some of the big countries like China or Mexico or other countries, duty rates are much higher. But now if everybody going back to 15%, I'm not sure that some of the buyers, they still want to source from China or they still want to go from South American countries. So that's a question mark. But I hope that this will have clarity soon. Hope that the US will consider Sri Lanka as a needy and friendly country and maybe will not impose additional tariffs.
Addressing recent reports of factory closures, Fernando reveals that the issue isn't just global demand, but Sri Lanka's reliance on specific legacy brands that are losing market share to fast fashion giants like Zara and Uniqlo.
Some Japanese brands, they are doing very well. But you have to remember that Sri Lanka doesn't produce for all these brands. Primarily, we are producing to Victoria's Secret, maybe Nike, some other. But in Sri Lanka, we hardly produce anything for Zara, one of the biggest brands in the world, Zara. And also, we don't produce this Uniqlo, one of the biggest brands from Japan. We don't produce. So what happens is, because of the competition from the consumers, the demand for, say, Victoria's Secret has become lesser, whereas the demand for Nike or demand for Zara has grown more. Then what happens is, although because we don't have buyers for Zara and maybe for the Japanese brand what I mentioned, so what happens is Sri Lanka, the demand for Sri Lanka is becoming lesser because we haven't grown the relationship with these Zara or some other brands. That is one reason. That is one thing has happened to some of the factories. So it's not overall demand reduction, but that particular brands we are supplying to the world, when their growth declines, that really has an impact with us. So that's why sometimes that we see some of the factories, they had to reduce their capacities.
This is the local news on Gold FM.
Police investigators arrested a key suspect today in connection with the fatal shooting of a lawyer and his wife near an Akuregoda supermarket on the 13th of February. The individual, identified as 42-year-old Moratu Arachige Janaka, allegedly transported two gunmen to lodges in Kottava and Pannipitiya the day before the attack. Officials confirmed the primary shooter as 46-year-old Sunil Ranjit, a former army soldier also known as Mahason Kallu, who previously faced 10 criminal charges, including a 2013 murder. Investigations revealed that Ranjit carried out the specific killing using a T-56 assault rifle under instructions from alleged underworld figure Karandeni Sudda. A suspect known as Polgasovit Dila reportedly coordinated the logistics and recruited Janaka, a long-time associate linked through illegal drug transactions, to assist with the operations. The families of the 12 people facing the death penalty for the murder of former Member of Parliament Amarakirthi Attukorala and his security officer arrived at the Presidential Secretariat today to submit a formal petition. During the visit, a Presidential Coordinating Secretary met with several family members who requested close attention to a pending Supreme Court appeal regarding the convictions. The letter further urged the President to intervene concerning separate appeals filed by the Attorney General against 23 individuals previously acquitted in the same case. With the use of AI skyrocketing to levels higher than ever before, its application is being explored in many unconventional fields too. Surveillance and security forces using artificial intelligence is one such example. Naturally, this raised the question on whether the Sri Lankan police leverages AI, and if so, how exactly do they? To find answers, we spoke with police media spokesperson ASP F.U. Woodler to find answers. Woodler spoke of the main application of AI within the police force.
Right now, the Sri Lanka police at the Criminal Record Division, that is CRD, is very much concerned over facial recognition. For instance, when there is a gathering at a scene of crime, then we do have the CCTV footages, we have the video clip, then photographs. Then what happens is we use the facial recognition in order to trace those people who were within the video footage or in the photographs. So that is the facial recognition is very highly done by the Sri Lanka police. Even at the airport it is done. The artificial intelligence is very much used to identify externally, trace real picture. Now if Mr. X is the suspect, we use the AI system in order to trace this guy and make up his face or make up his body to see that whether it suits or whether it tallies with the respective suspect.
Woodler went on to explain to what extent the AI usage in facial recognition is and in what sort of crimes.
Right now, the Crime Record Division will expand it to up to the most wanted criminals that have been patronizing in the country and who are trying to leave the country, but not up to the traffic matters. But we first look into the most wanted criminals who are involved in drugs and movements of weapons, all high-hand criminals who are involved in organized crime. So right now, the AI and the facial recognition are specially meant for those, but not right now for any traffic violations.
We also spoke with Harsha Vijayawardena, who previously led the development of the software used by the Sri Lankan police for fingerprint recognition. Vijayawardena emphasized how the police can streamline the adoption of AI tools.
We have not done a very specific facial description study, or we have not collected features. And once you get those features, you need normally in the AI, artificial intelligence, there is a model. You need to train a model. And then you feed that into, and then you can ask some of the AI them to recreate the face, with the giving prompt. So you tell the browser like this, and it will start creating your faces. Now, actually, the police is doing right now, what I understand. And they have done it, and they are doing it. Because that we don't have Sri Lankan features, AI models are not at the moment trained for Sri Lankan faces. And we have not done a manual also. It will not come to the exact what the Sri Lankan faces look like.
Furthermore, we spoke to Attorney at Law Gimhan Surya Bandara, who specializes in constitutional law, to explain the legality of the use of this evidence in courts.
according to the law in Sri Lanka, for something to be used in court is decided according to the evidence ordinance of Sri Lanka. So the evidence ordinance provides which kind of evidence is admissible to court. The AI tools or whatever that is generated by AI tools, they are not currently directly admissible to court, at least according to the evidence ordinance. But the evidence ordinance has an amendment which was added in 1995 regarding compute evidence. So if you are to put sort of evidence to courts, you have to put it according to the compute evidence amendment which came in 1995.
Though such evidence is not admissible in court, it may be in the near future, especially with Western countries well ahead in the game. He was hopeful, stating the cases there can be applied in Sri Lanka as well.
So those countries have the technology and the resources to incorporate these things to their legal system. So most of those countries have already incorporated, even when it comes to digital security, data security, cyber safety, and these kind of laws were initially started in those countries. And then few years later, those are introduced to our countries as well. That's how it works. So they are currently incorporating these AI tools and all of those things, and they're figuring it out how to apply that to the court system. And that also can be a guideline for countries like us to learn and incorporate how it works well in our system as well. In general, those days it usually took a longer time, but now that telecommunication and technology is more developed, developing countries seem to be picking up sooner. So I believe by next year we should be having the good technology. We should be able to learn it from the developed countries, and if the government and the officials do their job properly to work with these countries and bring the resources down and apply it, I think we even have an opportunity of applying that in our country within this year itself.
The Supreme Court of Sri Lanka directed the Attorney General's Department of Sri Lanka to file contempt charges against IGS Premathilaka over the 2024 Grade 5 Scholarship Examination paper leak case. A bench led by Preeti Padman Surasena has summoned him to appear in court on the 26th of next month. The Oxford Union cancelled a scheduled speaking engagement with SLPP MP Namal Rajapaksa. This follows a similar decision by Cambridge Union, which capitulated to intense pressure from diaspora Tamil student groups and LTT sympathise organisations across multiple UK universities. The Oxford Union president, Catherine Yang, stated that the cancellation occurred because students most connected to the subject felt unsafe asking questions openly. She noted that a forum where key stakeholders cannot engage on equal footing fails to produce the robust debate the union intends to facilitate. Similarly, a spokesperson for the Cambridge Union explained that the decision followed urgent and serious discussions, including a balanced and open discussion. The cancellations were prompted by statements from groups such as the Tamil Youth Organisation UK, which claimed that hosting the MP would ignore allegations of war crimes and systematic violence dating back to the end of Sri Lanka's war against the LTTE in 2009. Sri Lanka's overall inflation measured by the National Consumer Price Index fell to 2.4% in January 2026 from 2.9% in December 2025.
Now for some news in brief.
The deadline for the public to submit complaints to the Presidential Commission of Inquiry on Colombo Municipal Council probing corruption at the CMC has been extended until the 16th of March.
The business news on Gold FM.
The all-share price index of the Colombo Stock Exchange closed at 23,783.02 points after gaining 9.38 points. The S&P SL 20 index ended at 6,728.71 points, following a 7.24 point rise. Turnover total 2.5 billion rupees.
International news on Gold FM.
The Jalisco New Generation cartel unleashed a wave of violence across 20 Mexican states following the death of its leader, Nemesio Seguera Cervantes. The drug kingpin died in a military custody on Sunday from injuries sustained during a firefight with special forces. Retaliatory attacks saw businesses torched and burning blockades erected in major cities, including the World Cup host city of Guadalajara.
Entertainment news on Gold FM.
Dark comedy one battle after another dominated Sunday's BAFTA Awards, winning 6 prizes including Best Film and Best Director for Paul Thomas Anderson.
Sports news on Gold FM.
England moved to the top of their Super 8 group with a 51-run victory over Sri Lanka in Pallekele. Phil Salt scored 62 to anchor England's total to 146 runs for the loss of 9 wickets, despite Dunitwe Lalage taking 3 for 26. Sri Lanka's chase collapsed early as Will Jacks picked up 3 for 22, leaving the hosts 34 for 5 in the power play. Meanwhile, South Africa ended India national cricket team's 12-match T20 World Cup winning streak with a 76-run win, powered by David Miller's 63 off of 35 and Devol Brevis's 45, while Jasprit Bumrah took 3 for 15. The defeat leaves Sri Lanka and India in danger of an early exit, with poor net run rates making every remaining match crucial for semi-final hopes. Meanwhile, the 4th match of the Super 8 will be played between the West Indies and Zimbabwe at 7 p.m. in Mumbai. That's all the news for now. Stay tuned to Gold FM for the latest updates. This is Avinindra Soma for Gold FM News.